The biggest thing to think about is how you do a migration successfully. Now, of course, every customer environment is unique, and the challenges that each customer has are going to be unique. However, what we found is there are pretty typical patterns. The first one is that it's really important to understand and address business and end user concerns. This is often the most missed step. When people think of the sequence or the plan, they'll think of all the technical parts of the process, but they'll often forget about simple stuff like making sure that they've represented users' interests and pain points. And there are a lot of customers who have internal stakeholders who are not big fans of SharePoint, probably because of the legacy environment that they've had or other types of connections. So we want to make sure we address some of those pain points. So here's like a whirlwind tour of how to address some of those common pain points. The first one is that a lot of times when we hear from customers they don't love SharePoint, it's actually coming from a background where they're using an older version of SharePoint, specifically SharePoint Classic, and the SharePoint Classic experiences haven't been updated since 2009. So the features were locked before its release in 2010 in these classic pages, and they really have not had any major changes in all that time. So that's 15 years old from a technology platform. It makes sense that people don't love it. And so we need to make sure when we transition, let's say you have an old SharePoint environment, we want to make sure that's a new modern one. And if you're moving to the online environment, we want to make sure people understand, hey, this is modern SharePoint. This is, the modern Microsoft 365 era with Teams connected and much more. It's a very different experience set than maybe what people might be used to. So that's the first thing we like to address. The second big challenge is this performance consideration. And this is a big deal because when you move content from one place to another, what people are worried about is it going to be slower? I have to already learn where things are. Can I make that process easier? So we're going to talk about both those patterns, but can we make it so it feels the same, with file share like feelings within your sync agent and concepts like that? Or can we make it so you're confident its performance is much greater? And this is a mistake, again, organizations make where they don't really fully embrace the whole sync model, the different ways in which people can have offline, online capabilities. And there's lots of edge scenarios where you need that compute scenario on that device, on that facility location, so that you have better performance. So it's another thing to think about and directly address from concerns. However, I will say that the online environment is far more performant, and there's been so many different updates and changes to increase the speed of everything from downloading and syncing to editing files. So that's a pretty positive one that you can talk about. The third one that comes up a lot is, well, I'm worried about right now, I kind of know where things are. If we transition to the online environment, doesn't that mean there's another place I need to look for this content? And so again, we really want to emphasize that integrated experience. The fact that if they're using Teams and Outlook and things like this file share today, we want to make sure that they understand moving forward, you're just going to use Teams and Outlook, and it's just that the file share will be naturally within those spaces. And if you want to use the traditional ways you've used it, on your desktop with these sort of equivalent to drive letters, but now, synced folders, you can do that. So again, we're just kind of helping through that transition and making sure we lead that discussion around integration. And then lastly, this challenge of navigation, because a lot of people worry about findability, search, and of course, navigating across those environments. And we need to address this. And there's a lot of organizations that we see who think, okay, the migration will be quick, or they'll start the migration and they haven't really thought through the navigation. And then that becomes a big disruptor because it actually can sometimes completely stall a migration where people are running into challenges where they can't find something or they're not sure where to look. And we want to make sure we address that right from the very beginning.